The Sandy Atlas is here today in the front row. And Sandy, we just want to thank you for all you've done and contributed in allowing us to achieve yet another milestone at the Heart Hospital. And we thank you for that. The first cardiac transplantation was done on Long Island several weeks ago on a very valiant, courageous, and very gracious woman, Yvonne Fleming, who is at the end of the dais, who you'll be hearing from momentarily. Next to her is a very talented, experienced, and compassionate cardiac transplant team that performed the miracle. And you'll be hearing from them as well. This is the first cardiac transplantation on Long Island, which includes Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. Wow. This is technically Long Island. And this happens to be Northwell Health's largest service area. And Northwell Health, being the largest integrated healthcare system in New York, obviously it takes its responsibilities very seriously, whether it's managing or evacuating people during snowstorms or hurricanes, or whether it's delivering state-of-the-art heart care for people of need. And it turns out that Long Island accounts for one of the highest death rates from heart failure in New York State, as well as the fastest growing region for this type of heart disease. And this region is also the single highest source of patients that require heart transplantation in New York State. As of 2017, there are only 5 centers in New York State doing transplantation. 2 in Manhattan, 1 in the Bronx, 1 in Upper Westchester, and 1 in Rochester, New York. The last program that was approved was 19 years ago. With the growing number of heart failure patients, Northwell has submitted a certificate of need to the Department of Health, petitioning that there clearly was a need in this region for heart transplantation. And the Department of Health agreed. They agreed that this vital health care needed to be placed in the region and needed to be done by Northwell Health at the Sandra Atlas Bass Hospital. I want to introduce Dr. Garen Stevens, who is a medical doctor as well as a scientist, PhD. She is the System Director of Cardiomyopathy for Northwell Health, as well as the Medical Director of Heart Failure and of the Transplant Program of Sandra Atlas Bass Hospital. Karen?
Thank you so much, Alan. So again, my name is Garen Stevens, and I'm privileged to be the Medical Director of the Heart Transplant Program here at the Sandra Atlas Bass Heart Hospital. And I convey my thanks as well for offering us this opportunity. So developing a transplant program takes a lot of resources and a lot of help. And that help came from all aspects of Northwell Health, but particularly at North Shore. My thanks for that as well. So to put together a heart transplant program, my partners up here will describe to you that it really takes a team effort. And so when we first meet a patient with end-stage heart disease, heart failure, evaluating that patient and understanding what their needs are is critical. And so the evaluation process includes multiple types of testing, lab tests, radiographical testing, and other consultative services. And once we have all of that data and we put it together, we can really best understand whether a patient is suitable for heart transplantation. I first met Yvonne when I was performing consults at the Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan, which is a Northwell hospital. And Yvonne had been struggling with heart failure since she had had a heart attack. And when we met, she was having difficulties because she couldn't tolerate the usual medications that a patient will receive for heart failure management. And her blood pressures were low and she was quite symptomatic. And the day we met, I reviewed all of her data and I sat down with Yvonne and I said, you and I have to talk. And I started to talk to her a little bit about the life-saving therapies that we can offer here at the Sandra Atlas Bass Heart Hospital. We spoke a little bit about the utility of LVADs, which is a heart pump that can be surgically implanted. But we also talked about the opportunity of heart transplantation. And Yvonne in particular had very favorable characteristics to go straight to transplant. That usually involves a patient's height and blood type and things like that. But she wanted to try to see if she could get out of the hospital and how things would go, and we agreed to a very, very close follow-up plan. And after discharge from Lenox Hill, she came to my office in Manhattan for a brief visit, and wasn't feeling well, wasn't looking well. This was a few days after discharge, and we immediately brought her here, admitted her, did the evaluation, the workup in a few days' time, and she was listed for transplant. And Yvonne went on to transplant less than 48 hours after the time of listing. Her postoperative course has been really great. She is a champ. She has worked with all of us. She has a smile on her face every day. And she really has embraced this process with an incredible support team around her. And it's really been our privilege to take care of her. So I will turn it over to Dr. Lima to describe the actual surgical procedure, which I watched and I'll say is one of the most elegant procedures by a really fantastic surgeon.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. So I'm Brian Lima. I'm the surgical director of the heart transplant program. And this is obviously a momentous occasion, and I can't thank Dr. Hartman and everyone here for the opportunity to start the first heart transplant program on Long Island. So I have put a few slides together. So when we decide to accept a heart offer, meaning we receive calls routinely about potential donors that may be suitable for patients on our wait list, it's a very involved process. We as a team will sift through all the tests that have been done on the donor, echocardiograms, lab work, etc. And we kind of put it all together and decide, is this the right fit for our patient? And we became extremely fortunate to have early on a perfect match for Yvonne. So we kind of set off to go look at this heart. And so like any other heart transplant, it's sort of two teams working in parallel. You have, as you'll hear from Dr. Hussain, the donor team that goes out to the donor hospital and does the sort of final confirmation that this heart is indeed suitable. It not only did it look good on paper and with blood work and echo, but it actually looked good in person. So there's that very, very critical step. And in parallel, we have to sort of get going on the recipient side. In Yvonne's case, as it is for most of the patients we do heart transplants on, she's had prior heart surgery or prior chest surgery. So there's a lot of scar tissue and things that develop, which makes it not so straightforward actually to get right away started doing a transplant. And we're dealing with very, very tight timeline. Ideally, we want to have the heart out of the body, the new heart out of the body, for only about 4 hours, if at all possible. And you're often dealing with a distance spanning several hundred miles. So the coordination that has to happen between the donor team and the recipient team has to be literally down to the second to be sure that we don't waste any time, that we get that heart in as quickly as possible. And just to share a few of the slides, as I mentioned, we're trying to really make this all happen in under 4 hours, meaning heart removed from the donor in the donor hospital, brought back however long it takes by plane, helicopter, back here. And in the meantime, we're already prepared in the operating room to immediately take the old heart out once we're absolutely sure we see that new heart walk into the operating room and get going. So the steps of removing the donor heart are depicted here. These are just some sort of illustrations. But this is also a very, very critical procedure that Dr. Hussain will go into detail about. But this has to be done and executed perfectly, because any error or minor damage to the heart could basically render that heart not usable for a transplant. So this has to be executed at a very high level. And once the heart is out, we have to look and make sure that there are no defects in that new donor heart. Sometimes people are walking around with slight anatomic defects that we have to be sure we fix before we actually start sewing it in. And once that heart arrives and we're in the operating room with our recipient, we then begin this process of taking out the old heart. And once you do that, you're basically left with, as shown there on the right, an empty chest cavity with the 5 connections that you have to then put the new heart into. So once the old heart is out and you're left with that open cavity, you have the old heart that you sort of are holding in your hand, and actually this is Iman's old heart, and I don't think she's seen this before. We talked about it before. She was fine with it showing it. So, once the old heart is out, it's kind of out with the old and with the new, right? So then we begin the process of sewing in the new heart, sewing in the 5 connections, and generally this happens quickly. You're under the clock. You want to try to make this happen in about an hour or so, just to sort of align with the timing to, again, maximize the chance that this new heart is going to take off for the races. So we do each of these connections, and once we do our last connection, we release the clamp that's restricting blood to the heart, introduce blood back into the heart, and as it often is, and as it was with Elon's case, the heart immediately took off. So it was a success, very, very beautiful functioning heart, and I will let Dr. Hussain talk about the procuring process of how we actually go and get the donor heart.
Good morning. My name is
Morning.
Syed Hussain. So first of all, I want to thank everybody, especially Dr. Hartman, for this amazing opportunity to all of us to be part of this really exciting journey. So basically, anytime you get a call for a donor heart, it's at the same time very humbling and very exciting, because somebody is actually giving a gift of life to a lot of other people. And we always take that into account when we go to the donor hospital, and we treat them with utmost respect. In Aman's case, obviously we're very, very excited to get the first offer. And as Brian said earlier, it's a lot of coordination, it's a lot of teamwork. It's like you don't realize how many people are working behind the scenes to make it a success. So in her case, once we got the offer, we reviewed everything else. We had the whole team with me go to the other hospital, donor hospital, to assess the heart. And once we went there, the main aim is, as Lima said earlier, we need to look at the heart actually you start operating the patient, look at the heart and assess, and it was a great heart. So I called Dr. Brian Lima and Dr. Stephen back, said, the few words you all want to listen, heart's good. And that's what we said. And then it's a lot of coordination goes on between timing, because you want to keep the time as short as possible. So we had a lot of phone calls, goes back and forth to make it a success. And so what we look for is, make sure there's no defect in the heart, there is no other, issues. And there are a lot of other teams in the donor hospital who are also there for other organs. They're taking kidneys or liver or lungs. So you've got to work with every team, and every organ has to be good for their own patients who are going to get all the organs. Once it was a go, Dr. Lima told me it's time to go ahead, and he was ready where he was with one in the OR at the stage where we thought it was a good, in terms of keeping the timing to as least as possible. We went ahead, we stopped the heart there in the donor OR, and there are different steps we do to make sure the heart is as safe as we can, because it's a matter of life now, because once we have go ahead with the one, we got to make sure it works when we get back. And then then it's always a journey back home, so to say, when we always say. And I must say I've been doing this for a while, but when I got back here, I had a whole team here waiting for me, which was kind of interesting. And then we went to work. We got the heart there in the OR, we checked it out one final time, and the rest I think is
It's- We were able to get it in under 3 hours, which is also a nice thing.
You can shut it.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Yvonne Fleming, and I happen to be the first heart
You can do it, baby.
here at this hospital. And I'm so proud to be a part of this journey that I have embarked on since meeting this team has been phenomenal. I did not realize that once I got here, within a week, I was going to be tested. And within a week of tested, I got a call Friday night saying, about 9:30, said, you're on the transplant team. And I said, wow. I had a good Saturday. Then Sunday, 3:30, the doctor came in and said, I don't think you should eat that. So I said, why? And I made a joke. I said, why? Because you took the heart out the freezer and you defrosted it, now it's ready. So he started laughing. So I said, he says, no, we have a heart for you. And the only thing I could say was, wow. I was in a wow state. And it was like a journey. I met the team. I seen them when they went out to go get the heart and everything like that. They were interviewing me. And as they was doing this, I kept saying to myself, this is not real. This can't be happening this fast. But then I thought about it because since I've been on this journey, because I had a heart attack in November, major heart attack in November, and I've been in and out of hospitals because I couldn't breathe. I kept having water and everything like that fill up in my lungs. And when I met Dr. Lynn and Dr. Stevens, the first day I met them, they asked me what I wanted. And I looked them both in their eyes and I said, they told me about the LVAD, but I said, I want a heart. If I can get a heart, I want to do as much as I can. And when I put it out there, I didn't know how fortunate I was going to be to get it. I'm grateful. I am truly grateful. When I looked down and I couldn't see my heart beating. When I looked down after the operation and I seen my heart go boom, boom.
Here, baby. Come on. Bring it home.
That
Bring it
feeling
on.
was so immense, so
baby.
beautiful that I can't explain it to you. Y'all know how your heart feels inside of your chest. But that one was, what's it called? I am blessed that I got a heart. I'm sorry that someone had to lose their life to get a heart, but I vowed that if I did get a heart, I'm going to honor this heart. I'm going to respect this heart. I'm going to treat this heart like no other. You understand? I am
Yes,
going
baby.
to honor, I'm going to be an advocate for donors. I'm going to go out and I'm going to round up a whole new group of donors that they don't even know I'm coming at them, but I'm coming at them. Because you know what? I think like this. Everybody needs something. We just don't know what we needed, when we need it. And when it comes to you, you got to accept the blessings. And with that, I just want to say, I am so grateful that for whatever reason, I came to North Shore. Because North Shore saved my life. North Shore saved my life. The team of people that you have in your hospital is phenomenal. You don't have a hospital, you have a family of people that love what they do. They respect people. They give it their all and then some. From the staff that keep your hospital clean to the surgeons that do your operations. There's so much love in here that is phenomenal. And I'm so glad to be a representative and a spokesperson and being loved by the whole staff of Norfolk. Because I thank you. I just thank you. Y'all don't know how I feel. I could put my hand right here. And I could feel my heart beat. Before it said, and then it opened up. Another heart. trying to get air to breathe. Now I can breathe. I'm learning how to walk. I'm learning how to get back to life. And I'm doing it one day at a time. And I'm grateful. I am truly, truly grateful to everyone that was a part of my life, bringing me back to life and giving me new life. And I'm going to honor it.